Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we take, well, stacks of information. Could be articles, research, maybe just one really interesting audio clip, and we try to boil it down to the essentials for you. And today, yeah, we're doing a deep dive into some pretty intriguing excerpts from an audio source called The Truth About a Day Without Immigrants.mp3. So our goal today is really to unpack this material. It's quite unique, offers a, let's say, raw, unfiltered look and some specific political commentary. We're going to be navigating through some, well, very strong opinions, definitely some surprising observations, and honestly, some pretty intense claims, all pulled directly from this source.
Exactly. And what's interesting here, I think, is how this one piece of audio touches on a really surprisingly wide range of themes. You've got media interactions, political power dynamics, societal issues, even this really direct call to action about free speech. It's all in there. So we'll help you understand not just what's being said, but also the context, the implications, within the source itself. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Let's start right at the beginning. The source jumps in almost immediately with the speaker, Alex, talking about how someone named Priebus allegedly gets people to quit. The claim is, he says the president wants them to, and that Trump has apparently signaled this method twice. So right away, it sets up this kind of idea of maybe internal political maneuvering. What do you make of starting there?
Well, it's a sharp way to begin, definitely. That claim about Priebus, it immediately sets a certain narrative tone, doesn't it? Like you're getting some insider info about how power works behind closed doors. And then, like you said, it shifts straight into a very public moment. We hear about a press conference interaction, Trump apparently joking with this reporter, Alex, about checking family trees because he just appointed a new secretary, Aosta. But what's key is how the source frames this. Trump is shown, quote, tearing up CNN. And then, crucially, he predicts the headlines. He says there'll be Donald Trump rants and raves at the press. That's a classic move, preemptive labeling. By calling out the expected negative portrayal before it happens, the speaker in the source tries to, well, inoculate the audience against it. Shifts the focus, you see, away from his words, towards the media's supposed bias.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the source backs this up, quoting Trump directly. I'm not ranting and raving. I'm just telling you, you're dishonest people. But I love this. I'm having a good time doing it.
It really paints this picture of an adversarial relationship, president versus press. And then you see the language escalate from fake news to very fake news.
That whole dynamic, president and press, it really sets a combative tone right off the bat. It almost feels like framing the interaction as a kind of performance. And it's fascinating how the source then shifts gears so quickly from that public adversarial thing to the speaker Alex's own, like, really personal emotional state. Alex says, I was pretty wound up. People are like, man, you need some Prozac, Alex, but I'm really pissed.
What strikes me is he doesn't just say he's angry. He gives these really provocative, specific examples for why. He claims to see communists beating up women everywhere, and then even stranger, communists are like attacking cat sanctuaries in Austin.
Yeah, those are striking examples.
And then there's that cynical twist. The left goes, well, it is a white-owned cat sanctuary, and it's whites hacking it. How do these examples fit into the bigger picture here?
Well, those examples, even though they're, jarring, maybe even extreme, they serve a pretty clear purpose within the source's rhetoric. They're really designed to hit you emotionally, create this visceral feeling of like societal breakdown, extreme political polarization. It's a tactic that sometimes tries to bypass, rational argument and just connect with the listener's feelings or sense of urgency. It's like saying, look how crazy things are. Using these very specific, almost absurd points to emphasize a feeling of, I guess, pervasive chaos and maybe the misuse of labels, it really makes you think about how that kind of rhetoric works, what its intended impact might be on your perception.
Absolutely. It definitely paints a picture of intense frustration, like the world's gone mad. And building on that kind of heightened emotion, the source then zooms in on another really charged topic, immigration. It touches on the Flynn situation, mentions media spin, and then focuses on a day without immigrants. And the source makes this very pointed claim that the word illegal is just constantly left out. Then you get this direct quote. Everything's a deception. Like, everyone's against immigrants. No, we're not. We just don't want rapists coming in and being let loose. And for some reason, that's a problem.
What's the narrative being built here? What does the source want us to take away about misinformation.
Yeah, this part is pretty crucial for understanding how the source builds its case, specifically around immigration and political labels.
Mhm.
It basically argues there's this widespread deception happening. It frames a very specific concern, quote, rapists coming in and being let loose, as the central issue, not, general opposition to immigrants.
Yeah. That's a fairly common rhetorical strategy, right? Simplifying complex things, assigning very clear motives. And this narrative gets explicitly tied to media manipulation. The source claims they just give misinformation about all of these things to try to make Trump look like such a bad guy,
Yeah.
make his supporters look like the Nazis that they're calling everyone.
Strong language.
Very strong. So here the source is using deflection, really, and counter-accusation. It's saying the opponents are the ones misrepresenting things, using manipulative labels against Trump and his supporters. The words chosen, deception, misinformation, Nazis, they're all aimed at defining the political opposition and their motives in this really specific negative way. Creates a very clear us versus them.
And the source doesn't just point fingers at what it calls misinformation. It then goes on to claim that Trump's approval rating keeps exploding upwards in every poll, and those are even Cook polls, which suggest, that the American people are all for what he's doing.
Right, despite the polls it calls Cook.
Yeah. It presents this picture of a huge disconnect, politicians versus the public, implying the people are behind Trump. And to illustrate the frustration with that disconnect, the source brings up that really tragic example of the 6-year-old kid shot in the head in Chicago due to gang violence. The frustration expressed is that if Trump talks about something like that, for some reason that's a race baiting. What's the deeper power dynamic the source is getting at here?
This section really digs into the source's core idea of a disconnected power trip among the political establishment. The speaker criticizes this unnamed they who supposedly keep throwing speed bumps and roadblocks in his way. Why? Because, quote, they don't want to relinquish any of the power that they've built up over the years by lying to the American people.
So a deep distrust of the establishment.
Exactly. It portrays this deep suspicion of institutions, of politicians. Their actions aren't seen as legitimate opposition, but as, self-serving moves to hang on to control. And the source gets really specific, criticizing Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters by name, alleging things like they thought Bush was still in office, or thought that Russia had invaded Korea, or didn't know what Aleppo was.
Wow.
They're described pretty harshly as a bunch of weird, self-centered, spoiled creatures that just think they own us. It really hammers home this theme. A powerful, maybe deceitful elite versus the will of the people. Presents them as incompetent and malicious. And this whole perspective kind of builds up to that declaration. Everywhere, nationalism is exploding, implying this popular pushback against elite control.
This whole perspective, from media stuff to political power plays, it really seems to build towards a pretty dramatic conclusion in the audio clip. The source issues this really stark warning, calling it communist Chinese-style net censorship coming to the web. It says it's already here, it's getting announced.
Urgent tone.
Very. And then comes this direct, almost like militaristic call to action, aimed right at you, the listener. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com. MAP, a new battleship in the fight.
A battleship.
Yeah. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You're going to sit down and play games and be a trendy, or you're going to be part of history. Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action. What's the final message there, really, about how people should engage?
Well, that ending really frames the situation as an existential threat, doesn't it? A threat to free speech. And it positions it as a battle needing immediate, active participation from the listener. The language battleship, crew, part of history, take action, it's all designed to create this intense urgency, a moral imperative. It urges you, the listener, to become an active soldier, basically, and what the source sees as this critical fight. It sets up this very stark choice. Either you engage, you fight for freedom, as defined by the source, or you're essentially passive, complicit in its loss. It's a really potent example of how a source can escalate from commentary to this direct, very personalized call for, fervent action, all based on its specific view of the world. So if we try to connect all these dots, looking at the bigger picture, This deep dive into the truth about a day without immigrants.mp3, it really gives us a vivid snapshot, doesn't it? A snapshot of a very particular worldview, one steeped in strong convictions about the media, about politics, about the state of society itself.
Yeah.
It's a powerful demonstration of how information gets framed, how certain narratives are built, and crucially, how individuals are urged to react to what they're told are urgent threats. Which brings up an important question.
Right. So what does all this mean for you listening right now after hearing such a, well, passionate and direct way of presenting ideas? Maybe consider, how do the specific word choices you hear, the emotional appeals, the calls to action, and all sorts of sources, how do they shape your understanding of complex issues? And maybe what responsibility do we each have in trying to discern the core messages, the assumptions embedded within the information we consume? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Till next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and, yeah, keep digging deeper into the information that shapes our world.